Welcome back, guys, to the Bear Podcast Show with me, Sean Scullion, aka the Handsome Stranger, Owen Mallon, aka the Bear. Aidan is not behind the scenes because he had a wee appointment to go to. So, Aidan, shout out to you, son. And with us today, we have Tom O'Toole, Ulster player, Ireland player. Let's go.
Hello. Yeah, that was very impressive. I was actually very impressed by that. That was very good.
You know what I laugh here, Tom? And there has to be an admission because yesterday, and this is hilarious, right? So I had said, Ireland won a Grand Slam, me being a rugby nut. I goes, let's get a rugby man in here, right? So we'd message Tom, and I goes to Sean, message Tom O'Toole there, and we're getting him up. He's coming on next week. So Sean says no more. Sean likes to go away and research things, but that's all I had said. Taken for granted, he would know. Sean came back and goes, Australian. I goes, that's it. And he turned around and he goes, a baker. And I go, and I didn't want to say. I
The
go,
famous bacon that always comes up.
Did you hear
Yeah. No, because I've got that a couple of times. It's like because he has the mustache and all, and I rock that. And he's some old fella. I don't know who he is. I might get in touch with him because every time I go on Google, I see his face. First thing that flashes up.
Tom,
What are we talking about? Buns?
and he goes, a baker. And I says, aye. And then I was like, I can't do this. I can't blindside him like this here. But I so wanted, because you come in and be like, who's this guy? No, look, Tom, thanks very much for coming on, and just straight out of the bat, congratulations.
No, yeah, thank you very much.
Grand Slam winner.
Yeah, no, it's still kind of sinking in 2 weeks on now. So
There's not many professional players in the world or in this modern game can say Grand Slam winners. So
no, definitely
fair play
not.
to you.
And to be involved in all 5 games is pretty special as well. To be there for the whole journey and throughout it. So.
You know what was as impressive to me as that the rip that you guys went on after. I think some things get over documented.
Yeah.
You didn't go completely Andy Good and stay in the kit for about 3 or 4 days, but
No, not quite. It wasn't quite end of season stuff, but it was it was the end of the slam, and obviously it's as I've said to a few people before, it's 8 weeks of being in camp, being with each other. As I said, I've only been back to Belfast twice within that 8 weeks, really, not really seeing much of your family. And then it's the build-up of the whole emotion, and it's week on week. And obviously during that campaign, we were getting the wins and we were getting the results. So people were obviously buzzing, and camp and everything in the environment was class. But then it's just such an emotional roller coaster, even if you're winning throughout the whole campaign and you're going week on week. And then eventually when it just comes down to that final whistle goes and it just kind of that weight off your shoulders, because realistically the pressure for that English game was huge. St. Patrick's weekend and the build up to it, and the first Grand Slam potentially, or the second, and on home soil. So as you said, I don't come around very often. So, but yeah, the rip afterwards was pretty good. I think all the emotions were coming out. I think.
Are you still not high then? Did you peak and now you're starting to
definitely? I think
off?
Definitely peaked, because we obviously played the game on the Saturday, and we were in Dublin in the hotel on the Friday, and you could hear out in the streets St. Patrick's Day and the parades. We got out for a coffee, but the streets were rammed, and the whole build up was class. And then obviously you're right. You're staying in your hotel Friday. You're staying indoors, and then by the time Saturday comes around, you just want to get up and just go and play. And I think it was like a 5 o'clock or something kick off, and the whole build up to the day was class. And it was kind of a game. It was different to the French game. The French game a few weeks before that was nervous, second game, and you're kind of going, right, this is huge. Previous Grand Slam winners, France, coming to Dublin, and you're going, this is huge. But then the England game, you were just going, let's get out there. I remember just having trouble the night before, falling asleep. I didn't fall asleep but 3:30 in the morning. I remember putting my phone down like 11, couldn't get to sleep till like 3:30. And I was like, Jesus, this is the first time this happened in a while in my career, in terms of I couldn't sleep. I was just not nervous, but just wanting to go.
yeah.
And then, we ended up obviously playing and winning on the Saturday. And then, as I said, all the emotion just came out after that. And it was great crack.
You boys love giving England a good hammering, did you?
Yeah, it was special. It's kind of like, from growing up and watching it and getting around it and knowing the history of everything and how competitive it is when we come up against England. And obviously in 2018 when the boys went over and did it in Twickenham, that was special. But to do it in Aviva and to do it in Lansdowne Road and to be able to win and getting it up against a good England side, especially them getting pumped by France the week before, we knew we'd go, right, this is going to be huge. So to go out and do that was really special. And all your friends and family there, I think, for my grandparents and my family and my extended family being so far apart from them in Australia, I think that's what made it extra special for me. Since I've come back and been in Belfast, I'm still in Belfast, see them every now and again, but to have my granddad there and, his eyes tearing up and everything, I think it's those moments that, as you said, coming down off it for the last couple of weeks now, it's a big emotional come down in terms of you give so much, you give everything for those 8 weeks, and now you're kind of just, as I said, left to your own and you're just reflecting on it. I don't think I'll probably reflect it until the season's over because I'm still in kind of, prep mode and going week by week and doing what you usually do with rugby. But in terms of when the season finishes and I get to reconnect with my family and talk about it and see my grandparents and see how much it meant to them, it makes you go, geez, all the effort you put in was worth it and more. So, yeah, it was class.
But we had a conversation out there and I had said to you, and we've been talking to professional athletes and retired athletes here. You're in a different bubble to the people that's watching it, and you get glimpses of how big that means. And I had says to you, like a Grand Slam, I remember 2009, every game. I remembered the games because there was a thing about Leinster was going well, and we were always so close, but there was it felt like a changing point. And I remember even in the England game, and I think O'Gara was having a bit of a shocker, and O'Driscoll dropped a goal to just get us home. And then I remember watching the Wales game and how much it meant. 61 years, like they were wheeling out Jack Gale, or what do you call it? They were wheeling out old men that had won it last thing. But I mean, in the modern game, that's how big it was. That's how rare it was that I remembered that in vivid detail of what. But we were saying this, it's World Cup year, and this is a good thing and a bad thing in the same way. If you're playing such a good level of rugby, then people want to talk about you. You're number one in the world. I don't know what that bullshit about seeded teams, because I think that's a pile of shit. But anyway, whoever does this, puts this together and says Ireland's number one in the world, I believe it. The best team playing at the minute in the world rugby. But the next talk is, and we're having it here, the next talk straight away, and it almost diminishes the achievement. And then you have great servants to Ireland rugby. You have Johnny Sexton, players like that there, that you knew that was their last Six Nations game. You seen the release of emotion, a very rare glimpse, and it seemed like it was charged that evening, like, because it had been so robotic and Ireland had been so good that you almost forget that you went through that.
Yeah,
you went into locked away, got the performance don't come like out of the work wasn't there. So we know that you've been away and putting the grind in, and then it was almost like, for some players and the older players were like, maybe this is the last run at this. You could see that it was so emotional. And it was like a balance of nearly like a release. Because the pressure, we're wild easy at this, putting the pressure on our own. And we're wild like we expected Ireland to win. And I'm saying that the media, us, they were playing so well. Even the players, when you're playing well, you want to win and you expect to win. You know you're playing on a good team. You know you're on a good thing. And you're like, we can do this.
Yeah.
So it's not... You have to get comfortable with talking like that, and we're so like, oh, let's not build it up. We always used to want to try and be the underdog and sneak in. Where now you have to arrive and say, right, we're playing well, we're a good team, we're here to win. That's what we're here to do. We're professional athletes. We're here, but that's what I'm saying. It's sort of roll past a Grand Slam like it's nothing when you take the teams that are in that now.
Yeah.
The Frances, the Scotlands, the England, Italy, any of the team in the day, and I was sort of roll past Wales because at the minute, but any team could chin any team. So to put the Grand Slam together and just put it off to the side and say, right, we're back to European Cup and we're going to build into the Rugby World Cup. It does, and I think it won't be till the season's over, and hopefully when we're sitting as World Cup and Six Nations champions, that you could sit back and take stock, because all the professional ones we've had here, Sean, you don't enjoy the moment as much as other people are getting to enjoy it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What you said there, it made a lot of sense in terms of that week was definitely emotionally charged. You had guys like Peter Manny saying in team huddles that this is the most nervous he's been the whole week. I talked about, me obviously not being around a lot of those players for a lot of my career, and obviously shortly now in the last year or two, getting to know those guys really well. And when you hear guys like that say it and you realize how important it is, and it's extremely important to yourself. But as you said, I remember Ian Henderson. I'd be quite close with Ian, and he'd be a good kind of role model for me, really. And we would chat and go, soak in these special moments, because look, a lot of the time the word, or the phrase, this is the biggest game of your life, gets thrown around, especially within rugby week on week. You got to keep motivated. There's big games coming up constantly, especially in European rugby, and but that genuinely felt like one of those weeks and one of those games where Ian said, soak this week up to me. He said, to be involved in this is extremely, extremely special. And I think you're absolutely right. With being World Cup year, since Andy Farrell's come in, he's done an unbelievable job with the squad. We've had our share of losses, we've had our share of wins, and we are number one. And we talked about during that campaign being like, this is a huge, huge game, probably the biggest game for me in my life to be involved in. But this can't be the biggest game for this team. Looking down the line at the World Cup, we have to know that this is just one of these games that we have to just get in and win, because we've got bigger fish to fry down the road. We know that there's going to be higher pressure, especially as you said, people in this country kind of get around and expect you to win, and especially because we're playing so well. But we have bigger teams that are going to come up against in the World Cup, and teams like France that maybe had a little bit of a slow start to the Six Nations. They're going to be firing once it comes down to the World Cup on their home soil, on their home patch. And how close they kind of came to near the end of that competition of really, really doing some quality performances. So yeah, it is huge. It's getting that fine balance of realizing how emotional the week is and charging that, and realizing how big the occasion is, because it's massive. We've talked about in our group about inspiring a nation, and that's what we want to do. And the work's not done with a Grand Slam, and obviously you've got to realize how special it is. But it is a World Cup year, and we've got to get on to the next thing, because there's bigger games down the line. So that's getting the balance.
I'm gonna definitely put you over the World Cup preparations, but let's just take it back a wee step where we're straight in the Six Nations. Got excited there in the Grand Slam, but let's take it back. So Tom, as we've alluded to, Tom O'Toole, you're not the baker.
No, not the baker. I'm not a hope in the kitchen. So
And the reason why Australia came up was because obviously you grew up in Australia you didn't grow up in Australia, but you moved to Australia whenever you were 6, isn't that right?
Yeah. So
he's now you're not the baker. He's got you.
We've got that established. We're not the baker. Yeah.
He's got your Wikipedia now.
Yeah.
So take us from the start. Your parents moved out to.
Yeah. So it's only now really in life I'm kind of, as I'm getting a bit older and a bit more mature, like I'm 24 now, I'm kind of looking back in life, and kind of for a while there, and it's still a bit of a roller coaster at the moment in my life. It feels like yesterday I left Australia when I was 16, hopped on a plane and come here, and it's just gone year on year, boom, boom, what's the next thing? But yeah, to break it down back from where it really started, I was born in Drogheda, in a pretty just normal town. Then my family lived in Ratoath in County Meath. Grew up there with 2 older brothers, Jack, Joe, and Jack's 5 years my older, Joe's 4. Pretty normal family. Played Gaelic football when I was growing up. Didn't really know much about rugby at all. My father was in the military. He was over in Baldonnel with the Air Corps. So army, military family. That was pretty much till I was 6, and good memories. I've got a few. Went to Ratoath National School, and I remember kind of just the fond memories as a kid of playing soccer down the green, and we actually had a really nice. It was the old mill we lived in. The street that we had was a real nice community based street. It was really fond memories growing up in County Meath in Ratoath. But yeah, and then pretty much life then just took an absolute turn, and like it usually does with most people's lives. But yeah, at 6, I remember my kind of parents don't really remember the whole situation of how it kind of evolved. I knew my dad had probably progressed the most. He probably was happy with. He was a major at the time in the Irish Army, and he probably progressed the most he thought he would in his career, and he wanted to change, and that's what his passion was, his love. So I think they sat down, my older brothers, they probably had a better understanding than I did, and said, well, where do you want to go? We've got 3 options here. We go to America, we go to Israel, or we go to Australia. And I think my first reaction was, can we have a pool? And I was like, yeah, sweet. It was like happy days to get the sun. I think we'd been to Florida a couple of years when I was 5, maybe a year before. And I think I bumped into some alligators there, and that scared the shit out of me. So I was like, I don't want to go there. So I said,
I just love the third option, Israel.
yeah, I know.
You can head off to the States, we can head Australia, or we'll just fire Israel.
Fire Israel, yeah. Well, I didn't really know much about it at all, so I was kind of going with the flow. And then they're like, yeah, we'll chose Oz. I think my older brothers had a bit more of an opinion, but at the end of the day, it's probably my mother's and father's decision rather than me and my two brothers. So yeah, at 6, we packed up and we emigrated to Brisbane. And my dad went into the Australian Army there. Worked out of an army barracks in Ogra, and that's where we actually lived for the first 2 years. That was really interesting. For the first 2 years of my life, we were actually really kind of on an army barracks. Be doing your homework, and you hear guns going off in the background and helicopters flying over, and that was just an absolute change of environment. And considering like coming from Ireland to Australia, that's huge enough. But to be living in an army barracks and there's bloody tanks rolling around and stuff like that, but the neighborhood we lived in was all obviously army people, and there was a lot of people coming in and out and people from different countries. So you got to learn that, and we were only supposed to be there for 3 years. Did 3 years, and the Australian Army really loved the job my dad was doing. My dad was away for quite a bit of it. He was over the 10-year period that I was there. He'd been to Afghanistan once with the Irish Army, 3 more tours with the Australian Army to Afghanistan. He did 2 tours to Iraq with the Irish Army. So he was very, very, he'd been all over. So my mother was quite used to it. My mother's the glue of our family. She's a very, proud Irish mammy and proper kind of looked after what brought me and my two brothers up. So we, after a couple of years in the army barracks, finally got our house, and that's where we got a bit more settled. I think definitely I did got settled. I went into a good school where my brothers went. And then only started playing rugby there for when my two brothers they got into rugby because the size of them. We originally went over and played soccer, AFL, sports like that, just give it a crack. And then knowing my body shape, I kind of turned to rugby as well. But my two older brothers played that, and being competitive, they were 5 years. Jack's 5 years, Joe's 4 years. So they kind of gave me a bit of a physical, upbringing when they beat the shit out of me every so often.
You've been PC there, they beat the dung out of you.
Yeah, they beat the shit out of me. Even though I'd have to kind of run past their rooms to get to my room kind of thing. So, but no, it was great. It was always really good. And we came real close then because we had no family in Oz. Flip, it was great.
But before I played with parents too, that's some adventure to take 3 young boys on.
Yeah, definitely. 3 kind of had the balls as well. I mean, my two brothers were all bit fucking mad. But, especially just growing up in a military family, you're not really going to be normal anyway. So, so I lived there went to a great school, Padua College, in Kedron in Brisbane, for anybody that knows that area. But great school, real just kind of normal people, not a big rugby school at all. It was traditionally like a rugby league school, but just normal people. And as I kind of just got into the game of rugby and developed and kind of grew a love for it, and obviously genetically I was quite gifted. I think I was like 14. I was already gymming and training. Started doing that at like 11 and 12, but that was just more to just the family and my dad's kind of work ethic. I kind of was always looked up to him, and when he was training and doing his training, I just hopped in, and that's probably just where it started. That just training, and originally that was the plan for me to kind of go into the military. I kind of fell in love with it, but then obviously kind of rugby, as it progressed through the years, became pretty important in my life, and I became reasonably okay at it. So, I just started training heaps when I was younger, and as I said, when I was 14, I was probably about 105 kilos, and I was already gymming and just bought into the whole life. And I just knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. I was like, if I'm going to give it a crack, I'm going to just give it 100% here. Great school. And then, but that was a really nice part of my life. Looking back on it as a 16-year-old before I left, reflecting on that, not many kids my probably age have that experience of traveling to the other side of the world, having that opportunity. That's where I found the game of rugby. That's where I first played it. So I've got a lot to be thankful for and a lot to be grateful for. It was an extremely important few years of my life. But it went by quite quickly, and then
You had a big decision to make then.
Big decision. That was it. I remember when I was 16, and in Brisbane you graduate when you're 17. it's kind of weird. You kind of graduate when you're 17. That's it. That's your school. So I remember it was grade 11, which is like lower six. It's like your second last year. Year 12's year last year, and 16, and I was grade 11, and I had about 3 months to go to the end of that year, and I was going in then to my senior year, and when I was under 14s, I played in some representative team, and there was a coach there called Johnny McMurtry, and he's from Bangor, so he's a proud Ulster man, and said at the time, he said, look, do you want to put your name into the Irish Exile system just so they know about you and just so they know that they've got people abroad that are either Irish qualified or born in Ireland and could be, have the opportunity to return and play at some point. And at the time, to be honest, I was kind of thinking about my transition through the Queensland system in terms of Queensland Reds onto looking at that, playing hopefully Australian schoolboys and representative rugby within Australia's. But I said, yeah, sure. I was delighted. I was like, the more the merrier. It was a good opportunity. But so he put my name in, and then heard nothing for about 2 years. And then 2 years later, I was actually coming back to Ireland to see my family on a family tour. And he goes, do you want to pop up to Ulster and have a look and meet with the academy manager, Kieran Campbell, the time? And I was like, yeah, sure, no worries, that sounds brilliant. And there was nothing really happening back in Brisbane for me at that point. With a year kind of finished school, there were small talks of going into the Queensland Red system, but nothing concrete. So I said, happy days, yeah, that's a great opportunity for me. Went up, had a chat, thought this is class. Then went back, and then within a few months they were like, right, do you want to come over? It'd probably be an easier transition for you to come over to Belfast. You took a couple of years of schooling and then transition through the system that way, rather than finishing when you're 17, then coming over and you're a 17-year-old and there's still people here that are finishing school at 18. So I said yeah, and I had about a week to decide. And initially I was like, no, I want to finish school with my mates. I want to finish this out. We had a really good rugby team as well. That was kind of rare for the school I went to. We had a really, really good team that we went through all the underage year by year. We were very successful. I was like, no, I want to win it. I want to win the equivalent to the Schools Cup with my mates in Brisbane. That's what I really want to do. And then within a couple days, kind of the penny dropped for me, and I went, if I'm really serious about this, I was like, these are kind of the big decisions I have to make. And I spoke to my parents, sat down with them, and had a really big conversation about it. I said, this is huge, because if I go over, it doesn't work, I can always come back, but then there's nothing promised. So then at 16, I booked a flight and I got on the plane, and that was the end of August, and school here starts at the start of September. Or at the end of August, and within a week of arriving here, I started school at Campbell, and I was in boarding, and I still remember driving up with my granddad and just fucking arriving at the boarding school and going, holy shit, like 2 weeks ago I was just in class with my mates, dicking about doing fucking who knows what, and here I am in a whole different country, in a different school, different environment. Still nice weather then now, but it was still quite cold. It was still quite cold. Yeah, lured in. I was sitting in my boarding room, and the door shut, and my granddad had left because he dropped me off because my parents weren't here, and then it shut, and then I was like, shit. So that was, first month was difficult. Yeah.
Do you think you had to grow up quickly then?
Oh,
You were flying from Australia back home here, and then all of a sudden thrown in it was your decision, in the boarding school. So like, you're still only a 16-year-old cub. Yeah,
very much so. I remember the first month, kind of I allowed myself to kind of sulk a bit. I was texting a lot of people back home, and I was probably not doing my best to put myself out there to make new friends, and naturally with the rugby that kind of help and training and stuff like that, but I was probably isolating myself a bit. And then after about a month, I said, you know what, I've just picked up my whole life and come to Belfast. I was like, if I'm not giving this 100%, what am I doing? I just said, if I'm not giving this full commitment, I was like, why the fuck did I get in the plane to come over here? So I just said then, I was like, right, it was hard at the time, and people that know me know that I'm terrible on my phone as well, but it was really hard then as well. I pretty much just had to go, right, I have to just leave that bit of my life for now behind, and I just have to crack on with this, because if not, this is not going to work for me. And as I said, my parents were still over in Oz. My brother Jack was actually in Dublin, which was actually he went over to study. So that was actually the only saving grace, having him there and same time zones and everything, and being able to communicate with him and have another family down south as well, which was really good. But my mother, my father, and my other brother Joe were back there, and I was like, right, I just have to crack on with this.
That is, you know, every successful person we spoke to here, they can always define a moment where they had to make a big decision. And I always find that there's people now didn't make the decision, you know, they never know what happened. But like the other side of that, you arrive into Belfast, here's this guy, big lad, they've taken out of Australia, Jesus, you have to deliver the goods now.
Yeah.
You're the nail. I remember Paddy Johns goes to me one time. I showed up in this bright dress and top of training, and he just walks up and he's wild easy going, man, the way he talks, and he just turns around and goes, "Do you know what I want?" And he goes, "The nail that stands out gets hammered first."
Yeah.
But you were that nail stand out. So like in my mind, if I was playing tight or loose and you come along, I was like, I'm nailing this bollocks. The first moment I get a chance, I'm going to put a hit on him. Like, and you know that's coming down the line. So you knew that at that point, I'm going to have to start putting the work in or put it about, or I'm going to look stupid.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember there's a bit of hype about it coming over, and obviously saying to you guys before, I had no idea what the Skills Cup was as well. And there was a bit of hype about it.
That's big. Campbell College,
huge,
like
huge.
You know, you've Vincent, you've all them. It's big. Like.
It's huge. It's huge for those guys, and it was huge for me. It became huge for me as well as I got to learn about it. But absolutely, when I came over, there was. I remember getting a couple of messages from a couple of guys that were either lower six or up six, saying, "Look, haven't met you yet, but just want to say huge welcome." There were everybody there as soon as I arrived were so welcoming, like unbelievable.
Bar the props that was there.
Bar the props that were there. Unfortunately, yeah. I know. Yeah, they took me.
Played all the way through medallion, all the way up through the school.
That part of me probably felt a little bit bad. But yeah, those guys that welcomed me into their homes, to their families, allowed me to stay there on the weekends, to get out of boarding for a couple of days when I was probably losing my head a bit, and gave me that time to maybe just kind of adjust to the whole environment. Extremely grateful. And as I said, Brian Robinson was my coach there, and he lived on site, and he was a big influence for me coming over. He definitely looked after me, and you know, a lot of the teachers kind of looked after me, and it was interesting because I kind of came over there in the pursuit of to chase the dream, which is to play rugby for Ulster, and doing those couple of years really made me appreciate the history that's within the province and the history that's in the people and school rugby and schools cup. And I remember running out for the first game, and I was fucking really hyped up, and I was against a Dublin team, and everyone was talking about the skills cup, and I went out, there's a man and his dog just there, and I was like, where's the skills cup? And the people were like, don't worry, it's coming. But I remember getting a fight in my first game, and I just wanted to show people what it meant. I wasn't coming over and giving a half-ass. I was fully in. I was fully committed. Wanted to buy into the culture of the school, everything the schools come. I wanted to just give it 100%. So, but yeah, that was huge. But coming in, but as you said, then the pressure comes on, and you have to perform. And the first year we had a really good team, and we got to the schools cup final. And my best mate now, James Hume, ended up getting an interception in that lower six final, and scoring and winning the game. And I felt a bit of responsibility, and I knew I had the next year after, but that lower 16 was really special, and it was my first year, and it was just having the taste of playing, as you said, televised out in Kingspan, playing in Kingspan for the first time. And there was a few big moments in that year for me that really cemented the move to come over. And yeah, it was interesting though. The schooling part was also interesting as well, which was.
So what badness did you get up to?
Yeah.
There has to be a lot of stories there.
Yeah, I could say it all there.
No, you're the role model for them. They'll take your picture down off the wall.
I know. Yeah, I think that did it. I remember my first room was on the lower floor, and I was never a boarder. My school wasn't, back in Australia, it wasn't a boarding school at all. It was very just, working man, just sound people. And I remember being in the room, I was like, fuck this, I'm a caged animal in here. And I was like, it's great, and they're doing everything to support you and everything. But I remember just getting a screwdriver and unscrewing the screw where my window was, so it fully open, so I could just hop in and out and sneak out and to go to a couple of mates' houses maybe in a few evenings, and probably when I shouldn't have. But look, it was that part that was kind of right. If I'm over, going to have a bit of crack as well and enjoy it. But yeah, the academic side of it as well, that was interesting. Deciding what subjects I wanted to do, and my careers teachers going, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I just want to play rugby." I was like, "That's what I'm going to do." And they're like, "Okay."
They're looking plan Bs.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I got route 1.
Yeah, I've got route 1. I was like, I've left everything. I've packed up and left everything in Brisbane. I was like, I'm coming over here. I was like, I've got nothing else backing up. Well, obviously the military, but I was like, that was back in Oz, and that was a dream back there. But obviously it was all head of steam at rugby, and then yeah, and they were asking me, what do I want to do? And I was like, I just want to play rugby. And they're like, you have to have something. And I was like, you're right. So yeah,
because it's actually a serious skill too, you know.
It's very,
much,
yeah.
But
Yeah.
in Belfast, as much as it always reminds me of like the Coach Carter, you know, job. Yeah, you have to be delivering too.
Yeah, definitely, and that's becoming. I'm actually extremely grateful for the teachers that were actually not really interested in rugby, and that actually kind of cracked the whip at me and made me actually go. Right.
Because I Sean knows this. I went a very short period to rugby school and had to move. But anyway, the other teachers hate rugby because you put so much time and effort, and all you ever got was, if you put as much time and effort into this and as that, you would be that. And you're like, well, that's not really what I want.
Yeah, but I'm extremely grateful for now being the age I am and realizing that getting my A levels done and getting that done was actually extremely important for me. And as I said, the boarding actually helped with it because I had nothing else to do. I could train as much as I wanted, but ultimately I was on the school 24/7. I was like, I had to get it done as well. And look, I didn't go out of my way I didn't do 4 subjects. I just did the regular 3 subjects, got it done, and extremely grateful for it now, because at the time I was 2 years at the country and I was going, yeah, this is what I want to do. Just get to the Ulster Academy, get to that. And I was now that I'm at the other end of being there within the system a few years, and I'm just extremely grateful. I'm looking outside of rugby now for different careers and life after rugby, because ultimately it could definitely end at any time. And I had one of those experiences this year, and it put things into perspective for me, going, okay, this could definitely end at any point here. I was like, I need to be ready for life after rugby.
And then, so you obviously there, and then did you go into the academy?
Yeah. So ended up losing the Ince again in my upper 6th year to James and Mike Larry, and if the likes, Callum Reid is playing that team as well. They had pretty good Ince team, and remember that finishing up and just being pretty down and gone, because I just wanted to be successful within the school, and I wanted to deliver Schools Cup for Campbell, and because they'd given so much to me. But then I had to just look on to what was next, and fortunately I was offered an academy contract. So I was extremely grateful for being offered that contract by Kieran Campbell, and the likes of the guys that I've been playing against, James and Mikey and Credo and the likes, were all coming into the academy. And I remember going over to Ballymena school. I think we just had I don't know why I was at the school, but we had a meeting there about getting introduced into the academy anyway. And then from there, I was just fully bought into the system, and was really, really enjoyed what I was doing then. I was going, right, this is it. I was like, what I worked for. I was like, well, this is my foot in the door. This is not completely it. I hadn't played for Ulster, but this is what I'd worked for, and this was what we talked about, and now it's coming into a little bit of reality.
And then you got your first, when was that? You got your first call into the senior squad?
Yeah. I remember that first academy year. Naturally, as a tight head, things are kind of slow in your career anyway. I remember.
It's funny you're saying that. It wasn't that long ago. 24 was when the age that you started coming in.
Yeah.
And they would have been like, oh, lock and a prop won't fill out to the 24 now, and blah blah. You see these good cup cups walking around.
Yeah.
Absolute ball houses.
No necks in them at all.
So did you got your first senior cap in your first year in the academy?
Yeah. I was extremely grateful. There was
you never be grateful for injuries, but you do sort of be thinking, somebody take a bang here, I get in. Like.
Yeah, that's it. I went through that whole year playing a bit of club for Banbridge and playing. Fortunately, during the time, there was a lot of A games for Ulster, which really, really helped me out, because it actually allowed me to play within that system rather than just playing for club. Enjoyed my time playing club, but playing for the Ulster A in the
so we step up.
B&I Cup, you're playing against teams like Hartbury and stuff like that, and some guys that are actually really decent players. So especially as a young tight prop straight out of school, you need to just get in there and actually get that experience. So playing that was unbelievable for me. And then it was later on that year, there's about 5 games to go, and I hadn't even been called up to train with the seniors at that point throughout the year. I hadn't been called up, or I didn't even think there was going to be a sniff of me training with the senior squad that year. And as an academy player, even training with the senior squad, you're going, okay, happy days, just get another level than just being within the academy and training with the academy lads. And the academy trainings were good, but you're sometimes low in numbers, and sometimes the school guys come in and train with you. So it's a completely different standard, and people are kind of in different areas of their rugby career and journey. So, but yeah, then I ended up getting called up I remember getting off of a plane coming from Birmingham, and we were coming from B&I game, and they're saying, Kieran comes to me, he's like, you're going to train with seniors this week. And I went, okay, happy days. I was like, because a few of the other lads, Jordan Levy and a few guys, had been able to train with them. I was just jealous, and I wanted that. I was hungry for it. And he said, you're going to be training with them. I was like, class. I don't care what I'm going to be doing. I just want to be playing, get an opportunity. And then I rock into, I don't know why, but that week we trained at New Forge as well, which was a bit different from what we usually do. But I went over to New Forge, and John O'Gibbs had took control at that time. I think Les Kiss had just left, and John O'Gibbs had took control for the end of the season, and he brought us all into a room. And I remember at the start of the meeting, it was like, we're getting to some groups, review these clips on the laptop. Grand, no worries. Did that, sat back down, didn't really say much, was just quiet enough, just looking around, looking at the different players that were there. Rory Best was there, Tommy Bowe was there, guys that you saw playing when you were growing up. And then he's like, right, this is the team that's going to be playing Edinburgh away this week, and he whacks up the team, and my name was there starting at number 3.
You went straight in the hot seat?
Straight in, yeah. And
was he making a statement too to some players?
Probably. Not that I knew, because I wasn't in that environment.
You don't give a shit?
No, I didn't give a shit at that point. I was just...
It's not often they just pull an academy player.
Yeah.
It's normally you get your 3 or 4 minutes, which...
Absolutely.
I never knew why they done that. They give you 3 or 4 minutes,
Yeah.
and then give them 3 or 4 minutes, and
Yeah.
then maybe 10. But you're straight in there.
Straight in.
Was
and there was actually a good mate of mine that came through the academy, Matty Dalton. That was a second rower as well, and he was starting. I think it was his first start. I think he had a couple, similar to what you said, a couple caps off the bench, 5 minutes max at the end of a game. That's all he had at that point as well. And the team sheet went up, and I remember just looking at it and just looking around and looking back at it and being like, oh shit. I was like, there's my name. I was like, there's my name. And I was like, I'm starting. And I think it was like Andy Warwick, Rory Best, and myself. And I was like, there's Rory's, there's my name. And I was like, geez. I was like, this is mad. And then I remember then just going into the change room afterwards, and I rang my dad, and I was like, Dad, I don't really know how to say this, but he was over from Australia at the time, so he was actually able to come from the game. But I said, look, I was like, not saying we've made it just yet, but I was like, look, I'm going to be starting. I was like, I'm getting my first professional cap here, and I was like, just thank you so much. I was like, thank you for yourself and Mom for over the last few years. I was like, it was nearly just kind of like just the emotion of the last few years that I kind of built up, and
validated your decision.
Yeah, and that was it. And we went out and we played Edinburgh away at Murrayfield, which is notoriously a pretty hard place to go and play when they're playing Murrayfield at the time. The Dam's probably a bit harder now with their new stadium at the back. But it was in Murrayfield in a class stadium, unbelievable surface, class players playing in that team. And we went out and we won. It was my first game win. I was like, oh, this is class.
How did you find that though? Like, obviously you come from the academy. Was it a massive step up, or just like how did you find that?
Yeah, it's I probably found it more of a step up. The later games that I played afterwards, I think that first game I was just so ready I was so buzzed. I was so ready to go. I was obviously nervous as well, but I was so eager just to go out and play. And I remember just running around, just kept running, just kept playing. I got smashed a couple of times, but I was able to smash a couple of blokes, and then you're saying into your head, we go, okay, this is there. I'm capable. Like, my body can take this. And then I think the 65th minute, I think that's when I knew my body gave in. I was like cramping in my calf, and I'd never cramped before that. And it was just that game. I was just so eager to just go out and play that it felt okay. That environment, I was like, okay, I'm okay for this. But then it was obviously, you learn lessons then as you go on and play, and you come up against different players and different packs and different teams. So.
The intensity of a season is a very weird, matches, especially in Pro 12 or whatever, Pro 14 now, and you move on. But so you got the shout, you're in the door, you're starting, and then you've given a good account of yourself. and you're like, well, the beauty of the modern game now is it's it's monitoring where you're going. So like you're motoring all around. Have you got wiser from then? Where you're like, I'm not going to be a busy fool. I'm going to be conserve energy, more efficient,
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
But then, so you're back. Did you just then you continued on training with the senior squad then?
Yeah, so from that point on, that was a little bit of a breakthrough. Then I was able to be involved in the 5 games. The 5 games that for the rest of the season, and the actual last game of that was the most significant game of that season under Jono. It was against Ospreys at home, and it was to qualify for Europe the next year, and it was a big game for the club and everything. And I was on the bench initially, and we were warming up, and Ross Kane, that was starting at the time, great guy, went down with a back spasm, and Jono turns to me and he goes, Kaner's out, you're in, you're starting, don't want to look after you. And I went, okay. I was like, okay, I've started before.
It's a big mind shift, but
it's big mind
you spent
shift.
a week prepping.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, last minute, bang.
Yeah. And to be honest, if you're getting thrown in a few minutes before kick off, is the best time to do it because you don't have time to think. You're just going, right, okay, I'm in, let's just go. So the boys look after you. And it got even worse then. About 2 minutes later, we were warming up, and for whatever reason, in some contact, I ended up getting my knee hit, and my knee just went in some way, and I felt something go, and went, oh shit! I was like, that's sore. Never really had any massive injuries before that, and but I was just, the adrenaline was going. I actually remember looking at my dad in the crowd. Weird, like my dad was. I looked up, and I saw my dad, and as I talked about his previous life, what he's done and his career, and I looked at him and I just thought about it, and I said, what would he do? And he said he'd just crack on, just he'd keep going, you know. So I said, right, I'll crack on. I told the physios, and they went in, strapped it up, and didn't know what happened, and then went out and played. And the bench prop that they brought in was in the president's suite doing PR stuff. Didn't know really much of what was going on that week. Big Rodney Ayew, legend of a bloke, and but I think that was his last year, or maybe potentially.
From Connacht, he was up.
Yeah, and he was on the bench, and they're going, Tom, you might have to go full 80 here, just keep going. And I went, okay. So I was like, right, just get to halftime, just make it good, just accord yourself, just go to 40 minutes. Went to 40 minutes, and then came back out. And then I was like, right, okay, get the 60, got the 60. And it was a tight game, and then finished the game, and it was grand. And then the game had done, and then as the hour went by after the game, my knee just got worse and worse, and ended up doing like a grade 2 tear in my MCL that game. And yeah, and I played that full game with it, and that proved to myself that you can get through pain and you can get through kind of obstacles in life.
Big statement to the club too.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to prove.
Most players be rolling around getting stretchered.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to prove, that all the work that I'd done, as from 11, 12-year-old when I first started the journey to now, I said, I was like, I'm not wasting this opportunity. I was like, even if I have to get stretchered off, I was like, I'll just keep going until I stop. And then that actually put me in a really good place for the rest of my career then. I've had a few injuries, quite a big few injuries along the way, and that's kind of just kept the mentality for...
Do you think, coming from a military background, my grandfather was 27 years in the army, and my dad travelled around the world. They're a hardier breed.
Yeah.
They don't get the same attention or the amount of time. It hardens a wee bit, and there's an expectancy, and I know they say this, but there's an expectancy when you're in the military, you know, a bit more tougher, a bit more bite. Do you think that's helped you through that? You know, in them moments where that's where you're like, fuck, they're going to turn around and say, oh, this is a soft touch in the family. I'm going to have to knuckle down here and get stuck in.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you get a professional contract in the following year?
Yeah, the way it worked then, as soon as the season finished up, I then signed a development for 1 year and a professional for 2 years. So like a 3-year contract, but my first year was development. So then that's when Dan McFarlane came in then after John left to La Rochelle, I think he went to.
Was that worrying? When a coach that put the faith in you and then a new one, you're not sure what way he looks at you. Was that a bit of a uncertain?
Yeah, it's a bit of an adjustment. and you're kind of going, okay, well, what's he going to kind of come in? What opinions will he have of the club? But there was obviously quite a few coaches that had been their defensive coaches and stuff like that that kind of knew me. That it was only Dan coming in. It wasn't a huge change of guard in terms of all new coaches are coming in. So I felt confident enough, and I think they were pleased for what I did for the last 5 games in that first opportunity I got. And when he came in, then I was obviously developing a new relationship with him. Obviously developed a small relationship with Jono, and I think you'll obviously have a special relationship with the coach that gives you your first opportunity. But
I reckon he's a character, Jono.
Yeah, he's a good character.
Like he's the man, he ripped around France for a long time, didn't he?
Yeah, he certainly did.
Him and Jeremy Davis, them boys enjoyed the France thing.
Yeah.
But tell me, then you're in, new coaches in, obviously then you started securing, locking down your place. Did you feel it was your place?
Yeah, I remember the one of the coaches said to me at the time, he just said, look, it's your jersey to lose. And at that point, I was thinking I was still 18, 19, and I was a bit naive. There's a lot to learn about the game, and there's a lot to learn mentally. And I think Marty then came in, signed, and he's been an unbelievable signing for the club, and he's actually been unbelievable for me because me and him have been kind of there then since the same time. I first started my first development contract. He came into the club, and he's been an unbelievable role model in terms of teaching me kind of just rugby, and especially just like around scrummaging and stuff. And but I knew that I wanted that taste, and I wanted to keep competitive, so I still had that competitive drive. And then it was just then for trying to think, and then over those, when Dan came in, then I was given a few opportunities, and then it was me and Marty then for the last few years, kind of chopping and changing a little bit, and he's done unbelievable for the club, and then he's obviously put me in a good place to be ready to perform for when I have to go out and play. So but yeah, definitely I think once I got that first taste, those first 5 games, I was going, okay, right, I really want to just kind of go for this.
Did the goal then change till Ireland once you were in the, because it has to be, because everything we've learned from you was, right, what's the next goal?
Yeah.
I wanted to play rugby, then I wanted to be professional, so you kept taking the next step. So obviously the next one was Ireland.
Yeah.
And is that a funny one? You just get a call out of the blue there, or what way is that? Or do they get, or we're watching you, they get word they're watching you, or you're in the mix, and but like the funny thing then in around the Ireland team, there's a lot of props. There's a lot of props about. Then you have a new coach come in. Don't know what way it's going to go, but obviously, what do you just get a call or say, come down to Carlton House and
pretty much the way it worked for me. I was 21 when I got my first call up to go into camp, and look, at that point I'd been on the bench for a lot of my career, and I was coming on and I was making good impacts off the bench, and at that point that was my role in the team, and I was proud of that fact that I wanted to add something every time I came on, got the odd start and tried to do the best I could. But at that point, I remember we just finished training and I was driving back to Kingspan, and all of a sudden my phone just getting ping, and I looked at it and congratulations, unbelievable. Squad announcement, unbelievable achievement, you should be so proud. And mostly just family and friends and stuff, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, what's going on?
So they all knew before you knew.
Yeah. So then the only way how you found out really is on social media. So that's how I found out.
That's mad to me.
Yeah.
That and I know some of them were even talking about the Lions announcement, that some of them says they found out when they're watching this game.
Yeah.
That became a no. But that's just mad to me that I just fired it up and you'll find out whatever way you find out.
Yeah, that's it. And then
but maybe a good thing too, because right, you're in, but that's only half the battle.
Yeah, definitely. You find out on social media, and then you get an email maybe later on that evening saying congratulations, be here, confirm that you can be available and all this, and this is where you have to be at this certain time, this date, and then you kind of just go in from there. But yeah, it was extremely. I remember my first year went in and started a Six Nations campaign, and I remember we got halfway through the campaign, and then COVID hit, and I remember having a chat with Andy, saying that I was potentially going to get an opportunity against Italy that year, and then kind of COVID hit, and then it just stopped everything for 2 years. And then it just kind of just gone. That momentum from when I was 16 finally just stopped then when COVID hit. And that's when I kind of reflected on the previous years really, and then going, right, how can I get better now for when things eventually get back?
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a weird time.
It would have. You'd have been absolutely sick. Like you're like, and so many players know that at least if you break in, at least your chance to get a run. So you would have been targeting that when you're and then to have that taken away from you. But then, what we've come to know of you, you're very resolute. Like you're just back to right. Let's go.
Yeah.
So you're back with Ulster and they start playing again.
Yeah.
There's only a few things. Ulster was only a professional team, I think, that was playing, wasn't there, at one point?
Yeah, I think we had it was weird though when we came back, and I think we were finishing one season and starting another season. I think we played a couple domestic games.
That's right.
Played against Connacht and played against Leinster and Aviva with nobody there and stuff.
It just was weird. And then, like, the one thing we would say, Ulster have a serious following.
Yeah.
Kingspan on Friday nights rammed.
Yeah, definitely.
And you don't appreciate that as much till you go to, like you were saying, Edinburgh. There's a big club and a big feeding club to Scotland, and you see them scattered around the two biggest. Yeah. But I mean, you don't appreciate how strong of a support.
Yeah.
Do you realise how fanatical on a Friday night? You try and drive down the Greggy Road on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Or do you try and get a ticket?
But what I mean is, you're back playing. You're obviously missing the thing, but it comes round again. What way does that? Are you still in the mix, or when the next squad goes up, did you get the call, or is it the same again?
Yeah, same again, really. I remember when I went back, I got myself in pretty good shape over lockdown, because I knew that once it got back, that's what we were being told. Once it goes back, we're back in. There'll be no really people at the stadium, but like you'd be back into play. And I wanted to make a point of coming back to Ulster that I hadn't like just done nothing for the last couple of months that we were in isolation for. So we had 8 weeks of training or something, like a small preseason then when we came back, and then it was kind of like straight into games. And I played Connacht, Leinster, and a couple other games, and then there was a training incident that I whatever happened in a training, I did my syndesmosis in my left ankle. I blew all my ligaments out, and I got that injury. And same again with the whole resilience thing. That final that we played against Leinster in the Pro 14 and Aviva with nobody there, I strapped my ankle up and then went out and played in that. And then I got a couple tackles in that just went the wrong way as well. And then I came off the pitch going, okay, I don't really feel any kind of pain this left one, which is a bad sign because it means kind of everything's kind of gone really. So I got a scan then. It just said, right, you need to get a tightrope operation in your left ankle. They're going to put some screws and bolts in there and tightrope it pretty much. So that kind of took me out of the game for a bit, for a couple of months, and I missed the next Ireland camp that came up out of that was the Autumn Nation kind of games. I think they played like Italy and Georgia and a couple of games, and I think Tig was injured at that point as well, and that would have been a really good opportunity for me.
I was going to say, was it not frustrating at that point?
Yeah, really frustrating because we're playing well when we came out of COVID, and I was getting a group of games, and we were playing Toulouse that week, and it was the week Toulouse away, and that's when I did the injury. It was the week previously. It was Leinster in the Pro 14 final. Then we were playing Toulouse. It was a real weird format of how it kind of turned out anyway, but it was that week for Toulouse that I was all right. You're going to need a surgery here. So, and then obviously the Ireland stuff came in a couple of weeks later, and I missed out on that.
Is it hard? Do you worry that the opportunity has passed you by?
Yeah.
Were you confident that it'd come around again?
Yeah, there was points where, especially in isolation, when everything was just about rugby, then there was nothing else going on. That was a really weird time for me mentally because I'd had a taste of what it was like before it. There were some guys that had only made their debuts during COVID time, so they hadn't known, as you said, a Friday night at Kingspan. They hadn't had that feeling. They wouldn't know what the sport was like, and it was kind of a rough few weeks, and you're kind of going, shit, I'm playing really well. I want to get that opportunity. I want to show what I'm capable of at that level again, but then you just remind yourself. I'm like, at this point, I was 22, maybe 23, and I was like, look, if I just keep building my body right and keep building mentally right within my mind, I was like, if if I keep focus, I was like, hopefully, if I keep going, surely there'll be another crack down the line, hopefully for me. And there was. So that was really special. I remember then, I forget how many months afterwards. Obviously, remember the day. You'll never forget the day. But then, obviously, it went through the year, and near the end of the COVID that was ending, and I finally got my first opportunity against USA at Aviva, and we played Japan the week before, and there was like 3,000 fans at that. That's when they started letting people slowly back in. 3,000 I think get an opportunity. The first week was a 2-game summer thing, and played Japan. Well, I didn't play Japan. The team played Japan. And then the next week was USA, and similar to the Ulster thing, here's the team, and I was starting a tight head for a round against USA for my debut, and there was 6,000 fans allowed at the Viva, and my family were there and stuff. So that was really special to have your debut with just your family there. But that was just the main thing for me.
And then that's not enough for you. We've established that.
No.
You're like, right now I'm in here.
Yeah,
I'm staying here.
yeah,
So then you've obviously got your foot well in the door now, and you've give yourself you were involved in every game in the Six Nations.
yeah. So that's it. It's funny, and I've learned a lot about myself over the last few years and the journey I've been on, and what I can put myself through, and mentally what I can be like, and haven't always be that way. Like mentally, my reaction to a lot of negative stuff was fight fire with fire. And for myself, it took me a while mentally to realize how to be patient, how to bide your time, how to keep working at your craft, and then when you get the opportunity, then you can go for it. And I was been down in the Ireland camp a few times and gone through campaigns and not played and just had to train, and it can be frustrating, but it actually I felt like I learned a lot about myself and a lot about myself mentally. So when the time did come, this Six Nations that I'd just gone, where look, it was the same again at the start. I'm not going to lie. Went the same again at the start. Finley Beelan's been playing unbelievably well. He's in really good form. Tig, he's unbelievable, and one of the best tight heads that's ever been. And he goes down in Portugal with a calf injury. He's going to be gone for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden, then you're getting your shot. And I was on the bench against Wales, and the idea about that was Tiger probably back for the Scotland game or potentially. And so I was like, right. But then I was just taking it week by week at that point. I was going, I'm going to give everything. I'm going to be professional here. I'm at the age, I'm 24. I know what I'm about. So I was completely in a really good mental headspace for it. And I felt completely physically and mentally ready. So got the opportunity against Wales, then got the opportunity against France the following week. And that was a huge, huge, huge game to be involved in. And
especially that front row.
Yeah.
Because that's where you want to be. Like.
Yeah.
And for people that watch rugby occasionally, front rows are very, they call it the union, front rows are very technical.
Yeah.
And you want to test yourself again the best in the world.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have to go much further than the French front row. Like.
No.
So it would have been a tight old day, that.
That's it, and you have to test yourself against the best, because
I think you need to you embrace that, don't you? You want that. Like.
Yeah. Eventually, there comes that point in your career where you're going, right, I need to challenge myself, because I need to see where I'm at, because I can't keep talking about it, or I can't keep talking to myself about it, or talking to other people about it, that you're ready, or you need to do this or that. I was like, you need to go out and you need to prove to yourself that you can go, right, I can take this on, and there's no other against a big French pack. When you go out and an important Six Nations, which have been talked about, and going into that Six Nations, I didn't know what to expect. And here you are coming off the bench and in such a big game that was tight at the time. And we ended up winning that game, which was massively important. And I think after that game, then I just had so much belief. I've always had belief in the system, the team and everything, but just that inner belief within yourself. And it was another moment in your life. And then obviously Italy the following week and the rest of the games then. And then by the England game, I was just so excited to go and play, which had been just a total switch compared to the French game where you're kind of full of nerves. Good nerves, but full of nerves nonetheless.
And in the front row, if you're there or on the bench, you're going to play.
Yeah.
Because of that position. So
yeah.
You did know your opportunity would come. And sometimes you want the opportunity in the last 20 because you can give a very good account when others are tiring around you. You can give account. But you also, and I always thought this, and I always, like, the likes of like Sean Cronin, great players like that to come along when other great players were about, like Roy Best was in there, and you don't want to be the guy that's good from the bench.
Yeah.
You want to establish yourself obviously as
Yeah.
the starter. But as you said, Tag Furlong and any on his day, is there a better, and you obviously must have confidence to say, I can't be on my day.
Yeah.
Because what are you doing there if you don't think that?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is from what he's put down over the last couple of years, people like, especially when the Southern Hemisphere start revering you and things. So do you look at players around there like that and say, right, I'm going to work on this aspect. I'm stronger in this side of the game. I'm stronger in that side of the game. I'm going to bring this part and make it, a part of my game. Do you go away and work at that? Or?
Yeah, naturally you do. Like if you're not testing yourself, like what are you doing then? And you look at those guys, and as you said, the front row has an pretty unique kind of relationship within teams. I know people in backs and stuff, and a lot of people kind of like slag front rows and whatever. But I think front
Pretty
row,
boys.
yeah, more or less.
Stand out there worrying about the hair when you're in against the eye. I know that.
Yeah, definitely.
Played in teams like that before.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of that. But I think front rows are definitely evolving and they're changing. And I think, what Tyke's done for the game and for me coming into camp, as I said, I had 3 or 4 years to learn off those guys. And you go, okay, what am I strong at? You write down, what am I strong at? And you look at, what do I need to work on? And then you look at those guys and you look at them train in, day out. You're in there with camp. You see how they go about their business every day, every minute. And you pick up those small things and you learn that stuff. And you go, right, what can I take from his game and add to mine? You have to do that. If you just go, right, most times you do need to just worry about yourself and just get your own shit right. But if you're not trying to evolve your own game and look at those guys that have been there and done that, then you're not really going to improve, are you? So, but that's it. And then the fortunate thing is you get to train, and that's when you can be competitive. That's when you can really test yourself. That's when you can put yourself into vulnerable positions that you probably, or maybe some positions you're not strong in, and then you just have to see how you go. So, and you learn from that. You watch training, you do your analysis. So there's many ways of kind of picking up those cues and learning from those guys. But they'll talk to you as well. You know what I mean? They're at the end of the day just people, and they'll just try and help you out.
And like the match is the match. Your job is to go out at that time and win. But you talk so much about the camp, all the hard work's done in camp.
Yeah.
What's a normal week in camp?
Normal week. If you're starting from a match week, you'll come in on Sunday night. The group will just reconnect. You might have a meeting, probably pretty small. More just coming in, just getting back into your room. So we have two kind of like camps. We have Carton House, which we do Sunday to Wednesday. You come in Sunday night and you'll do Monday, which you'll probably start at each day you start at 8:30, 9:30. But we go from Carton House to Blanchardstown, which is the HBC, which is the High Performance Centre, which is like with Dublin traffic as well, it can be ridiculous. So sometimes you need to leave quite early, but that can obviously be a bit of a journey in the morning. You go there and you do your day, and Monday is usually a bit of a lighter day, a bit of just a learning day. Get into your groups, get into your meetings, and have chats and chat about review the obviously game week before, or if there was no game, just kind of do more preview on a team that you're playing that weekend. Tuesday you'll be right. We've talked about this. We've walked through this. Let's go and actually just get it run through, but. You don't go 100% really. Well, you go 100%, but there's not much physical element in it. You do that on your Tuesday, and then you finish up around the same time. Start about 8:30, finish around 4:30 or 5:00. Get back to the hotel, and they actually do a really good job. Once you get back to the hotel, you kind of just chill out. You'll go to the computers, do your analysis, watch training, watch more footage in other teams, get in smaller groups, chat about oppositional players. And then the Wednesday is your kind of big high performance day. Then that's when you need to execute and everything you've done that week. That's when you just need to go out and put it in the pitch. Some days it can be good days. Some days you can go out and not execute as much. But, going out on Wednesday and having a bad day is not a bad thing because it just tightens things up a little bit more. But then obviously you want to go out and perform well on the Wednesday just to train well because what you've been doing for the last couple of days. You do that on the Wednesday, finish up. You go home if you want to or stay at the hotel that Wednesday evening. Be with your families, guys that have kids and stuff like that. Go out for a brief few hours, spend the night at home. Thursday back into then the Shelbourne at Dublin, which we stay when we're playing at home. Go into there on a Thursday more meetings, captains run Friday, and then play Saturday. But once that Thursday rolls around, it just goes very quickly. Then after that,
The match days, Carl.
Yeah.
I was running late one time. Normally I'd be in the stadium and get a few pints, get in the seat, and get the vocals warmed up. But actually, you see the bus getting brought in, and the president and Michael sitting in them, getting rode in round, and it's a cool because you get to go down through the middle of it.
Yeah.
You, like I was saying this here at the start of the show, you're very excluded from the hype. That's not excluded because of social media now. It's not like you're oblivious to what's going on, but you're in a different world at that point. You're you're professional. You're in the job, and it's very clear. It's the next job at hand. And you when you're doing your analyst and you're sitting there, but the country's starting to boil up, and they're there and they're banging the windows and the things going by. It'll be hard not to take that on board. You're getting your match prep in, you're heading in, and you just say, Jesus Christ, these are coming out to see us. We're going to fill. Like, I still don't think it would get old. Like, you look around the Viva and say, like, this stadium's filled with people here to see this. I went to the Fijian game in the thing, because we had actually said this. We were looking to get tickets. Me and a group of lads, once a year we go down, we booked the World Cup, but we would pick one game. And we were like, we always want to try and get the South Africans to. And I goes, let's go for the crack with this one. And it was rammed to the rafters.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I maybe I'm doing Fiji a disservice in saying that, but it would have normally been the game that it wasn't, But it's just there's a different buzz about now about Ireland, and even that day and playing teams like that and going to that, and the Viva itself. It's such a it's a new stadium. It's so well laid out that. It's now got to the point where the World Cup's around the corner. That's obviously the next goal. Be in the squad, to be off to France, and then to win it.
Yeah, definitely.
So for you, I suppose it's now just getting the body right, looking after yourself, and then making sure you're in the position till you want to be there. Yeah,
that's it. And it's it's every player's dream to be at a World Cup, and as you said about that buzz about the games, you can definitely feel that energy as a player. Obviously, you're in camp and you're with each other 24/7 for a lot of that week, and then you get to go out and just do what you love. And having the fans there, that just creates such good energy, and you never get tired of that. That feeling you never get used to it. You know what I mean? Well, for me anyway, I definitely still get like that good nerves, but that just excitement and. That people coming out and lined up in front of the hotel and getting onto the bus and yelling and screaming at you, it's so special, and it's definitely something you just don't take for granted, because we've talked about within the group inspiring a nation. You know what I mean? We want to inspire those young lads that are starting to play rugby. We want them to look at the TV and look at players and go, "That's class. I would love to be a part of that one day," and to chase the dream like many of us have. So that's what makes it really, really special, and you always are so grateful for the people that come out and support. And as you said, now coming on to the World Cup and the excitement and the buzz that's going to be building around that, and for me to wanting to be a part of that is massive, and it's huge.
Do you feel more confident now in the group to talk or to give your the way you go into a new team and you're there and you've earned your spot, but at the same time you earn your spot when you're there, when you sit back and you listen to the older guys and you take pointers from the. But do you get the point now? You're like, well, I've been about it, and I think this, or you want to say your part now, and you want to be a part of the team, or is it still new to you? Or
it's a bit of both. It's weird now. It's still just so special for me to be part of that group, and obviously I was able to play over the Six Nations. But no, I think I definitely know what my job is, and I would want to just fulfill that job and do more and give it to that team. But in terms of the leaders, we have such good leaders within that team that, you
don't need to.
You don't need to, and the coaches do such a good job of putting you in the best mind frame you can be in to just go out and perform, that there doesn't need to be a lot of chat.
What about Holly? Is he as intense? I read I met him one time and he's an absolute gentleman. I remember I was actually telling you, it was when we went down, Ulster went down to play Munster in 2012, and we pulled in early, and I says, geez, there's Paul O'Connell. And they're like, no, it's not. Like, so many ginger giants is walking around. Remember?
Yeah,
At this time of the morning.
Yeah, yeah.
So we pulled up and we were talking away, and he's just a gent. But I remember then I went away and read his book, and I just remember afterwards thinking, fuck, he is intense. Like, he was, he didn't get to enjoy it. Like, you know, he was so intense. He was so competitive. He was just all about the win. And you could tell, like, he was fixated. He couldn't be any different as a coach, could he?
No, he's similar in that regard, that he wants to win. He's competitive. The thing about Paul, especially with me, when I wasn't playing, you would have a lot of conversations with those guys. They'd want to talk to you, see where you're at, see what you need to improve in, and he understands that there's human error as well. You know, he's not a robot in terms that if you make a mistake, it's not a bad thing. He wants to see you improve. He wants to see you do well. Like, for the big thing with Paul is that, you know, you're obviously given 100%, and that's obviously the expectation, and you wouldn't expect anything less. But even if you're injured, you know, you don't stop. You keep going. It's all about the team, and it's all about the jersey, and it's all about that opportunity. You know, you can definitely see, like, he's such a big character. You know, especially when you're traveling around and people are wanting photos with him and stuff. He's such a big character for the game of rugby. And
he looks like somebody just inspired. You know, he wants
good.
You want to do him right.
That's it.
That
You want to go out and
inspires
play
you,
for him,
and you want to. You would take one. You know, he did and did, and I think that's why he's revered. But could you believe you made that massive decision 8 years ago? And that, like we've said, that you know, it came down to that moment where you say, no, you know what, I'm in the easy now. I'll see if I can ride out in the Queensland. I'll see if I get in with the Reds. And so many get lost in the cracks and that's just. The one thing I have to say is the Irish youth, into the feeding in, especially the school cups route, a lot of players go harder routes. We were talking about Brad out there. You know, a lot of players go a different route. He came from Surrey to the Rainy to get his shout, and then now he's with Wales, you know. So, like, a lot of players go a lot of long routes. You seen Tag Byrne had to go to Wales. You know, you'd made that and you'd come in. Could you imagine 8 years later we would talk about you sitting down with Paul O'Connell and Saxon, your captain? You know, you're having there's there moments like that, and you're like, shit, you know, I'm at this side of it now. You know, it was worth it.
Definitely. Yeah, you do. As I said, when this season finishes up, you will reflect on it all. Yeah, definitely looking back on that, like, it's a long journey now. Again, as I said earlier in the podcast, like, it feels like it's just been year on year, and it feels like it's just been one big roller coaster, one big journey, and you do pinch yourself and you go, holy shit, like, how did this kind of sometimes get to this moment? But you're so grateful for it. And as I said, there's been moments in my career where it might not have gone that way, you know. Like earlier this year, not much people know, like, I ruptured my left testicle. I got a 2.5 centimeter rupture in my left testicle in a game against Sale, and that nearly put me out of I was potentially going to lose it. And you're going to go, you're weighing up, is rugby still a possibility? Is kids still a possibility? There's
big questions.
Big questions, stuff like that, injuries that kind of stop you in your tracks for a bit, and big moments in your life. And that was a huge moment for me earlier this year. I remember sitting in a hospital bed in Manchester, and they said, we're not going to scan it, we're just going to potentially just go in and operate on it. And that can have a lot of problems after if you go in and do mess around in there. So fortunately I didn't have to, and didn't actually know it was ruptured till about 4 weeks later when I got a scan on it again. But at that point in my career, this is before Six Nations, before everything, they were talking about, you know, kids, family, how that could have an effect on it. If you get another bang on it, it's definitely going to have to be taken out. What that would happen then to your testosterone levels after that. There's no promise that you'll get testosterone boosters. So that was all before Six Nations. So after that moment, that was another huge moment in my life where I went, when I get back to playing, if I get back to playing, this is what I still want to do, and it's definitely still what I want to do, obviously. But when I get back to playing, I was like, I've just got to go for this. Just non-stop and take every opportunity.
That's the one thing, and people have a lot of opinions, and professional rugby players, some professional rugby players decide that they want to go to France or Japan. And I always say, professional rugby players, their career is what they're doing, and it's a short window. So some people want to judge people that want to go off and get a few pounds because they might not have options for after.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was. It was an English player went out and he says, I don't have the backup some of these boys have. So I'm going away to get what's mine before it's too late. And I was like, 100%. But I admire Tom, that everything. I see it in the things you say, that when you set your mind to something, you're very, very, that's it. And I think it's a very military approach, and I see that from my father and things he does. And a dog with a bone, I would have said, it has to be done. It's the next thing. And I hope. Will you take a wee holiday in between the season, or will you have time, or will you get a wee break? Because it's going to be a long. You say this season, but it's not really. It's one rolled into the next.
It's one rolled into the next, and that's what it always is. And we have 2 games coming up in the league now with the URC to finish off. We'll get quarters, and if we get 10 points out of the next 2 games, then hopefully that will guarantee us a home semi. And then like our goal is the final, get to the final, and whoever team we face in the final. But that's our goal, has to be. And once the final of the URC is then finished, I think we get about 3 weeks off, and then it'll be straight in touch wood if I'm available for the preseason for the Rugby World Cup, and then that'll be a big preseason for that starting then. So as you said, hopefully you have to get a little bit of time away. I've realised that as I got older. When I was younger, I probably said, right, where am I going to go train? What am I going to do? But mentally, you have to give yourself minimum a week just to reflect.
Because there's a lot of talk about this. And I think Ugo Mania stirred this up a bit, and they were talking about this. And rugby has always been a social sport where I'm not at the end. Well, I probably was back then. No. Some of us don't get to me.
Carrying
the best player that ever played.
Carrying the water on for the boys.
You're right. Everything's so intense and it's so professional and so much thought of, and the standards are so high now. And you need the downtime. Yeah, you need the time away to say, get drunk and sit back and say, holy shit. But this is what they're talking about. There's like, rugby players should be off drinking all now. And I was like, they start taking that out of it. And they start taking all the other crack and the social and the values, as we call it. They start taking that out of it. I think boys will crack up. I think it'll be a big struggle. Yeah. Because in them days that you're talking and the problem with injuries and the dark days and all, you'd be questioning what it's about. Yeah. You would just pull the pin on. Yeah. So I always, and I know, I think Manu was trying to stay relevant, was coming out with that shit, and because he know fine outlay, and I just think to myself, if I was your size and I got over for the lens, I'd have got one of them balls down. But anyway, yeah. The thing about it is that that's why I says you take a break, because it'll roll in. But obviously you'll be thinking your first goal is let's get the final, let's get these games. There's a lot of rugby between now and the World Cup, and it's a cruel game. So let's keep myself right, keep me physically right, get there. Would you take a wee switch off, or maybe just a break, and then it's back to business?
That's it. It's back in the business, and like as I'm getting older, like I'm taking better care of my body, and like you're completely right. I'd be a big supporter of keeping a lot of rugby values. I believe the game probably does need to change in certain areas, but keeping that balance, it does need to have a balance, because some players will like crack, if they don't have that right balance within their life. I think I'm getting to the age now where I'm taking a lot better care of my body though, and I'm doing a lot more work with mental health and recovery, and taking importance of that. As I said, when you're younger,
what do you do for your recovery? It's cold water.
Yeah, cold water.
Did Sean, we're talking about this. Sean's a big swimmer,
Big swimmer.
I love him swimming.
He loves his open water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big cold dipper.
I was in the pool this morning and I had a nice cold shower afterwards.
Yeah, nice.
So the cold showers, I think it helps you.
It really does.
Just nearly energizes you. You know, once you've done a training session, you get that cold hit.
Yeah,
it's just like, I'm ready to go now.
Well, I always have a cold shower before a game, before I leave the hotel.
Do you?
Have a real cold shower just to.
Have you a ritual?
Not really a ritual. I probably when I was growing up, when I was first starting, I tried to maybe develop a ritual, because I thought it was maybe a cool thing to do, maybe a bit unique and maybe a bit of a story to tell. But no, not really. I kind of.
Is any of our lads quirky like that? There is boys that have to do the same thing.
Yeah, there's boys that sometimes go in like pretty early to start doing stretching and stuff like that. Maybe just because of their bodies, but they've kind of, a lot of boys, some of them just keep to themselves and won't really say a word up until the game. I kind of just go with the flow and just keep relaxed. Sometimes I listen to music, sometimes I don't. Just kind of depends what mindset I'm in. But the one thing I would do is probably just have a cold shower before I leave the hotel, which I find beneficial.
What about recovery? See, Cian Healy and them boys, they love to get out into Bray.
Yeah.
I don't know ever like that. I see Carl Frampton, all them boys at that there. I don't know ever like that. Hey.
Now we have good recovery systems at Ulster, and we actually just got, which we're very fortunate for and very privileged to have. We got a sauna built into the stadium, into one of the change rooms. So we have a sauna now that can fit 5 or 6 people. So really grateful for that. I'd be a big. I'd like the sauna probably more than the cold, to be honest. But I definitely see the benefits of both. I try to get a good balance of both. But I would definitely, especially at the start of the week, I'd definitely just smash out a sauna.
People like to talk in the sauna. There's
yeah.
a few good stories.
A few good stories.
The loosen the lips day. Sean comes in with all these Sean sauna stories, and Sean sauna stories, and I'm like, I must start going up to this here. But
that's good crack. It is
oh
good crack.
my god! Some of the stories I've heard.
Yeah.
Some
Do
of
you
the
want to
stories
share
I've told.
any what's the story, Sean?
There was actually a guy come into there's a guy come into the sauna, and I don't know what he was doing, but he landed in with a can of Coke, a Kit Kat, and a bottle of water into the sauna,
Just a wee
and
picnic.
sat down,
Just a picnic.
and he just looked at me like it was nothing.
Yeah.
He says, "How's it going?" So he munched away at this Kit Kat anyway. Had a wee gurgle on his Coke. Next thing, hand into the pocket. Then he was out with a Vicks. You know the wee tube of Vicks for up your nose?
Okay, yeah.
He was snuffing away at this Vicks. And I was like, this boy is just living his best life. He didn't
But
even have
just,
to talk.
that sounds like such a weird combination to me that you're like, geez, I'm a bit bunged up here, but I'll take a Kit Kat and a Coke. There's no wives' tale says if you take a Kit Kat and a Coke and a sauna, it'll clear your
Clear you
nostrils.
out.
That's it. You might have bad sinuses or something.
Ah, but there's been a fair few stories that you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Look, Sean, nothing's off the table. But no, you know what, Tom, I really, really enjoy, obviously being a rugby man, I really enjoyed it. But you know what I've enjoyed more? Getting to know the background and the mental strength that's involved there. You made very little of some of that. To tell any 16-year-old that he's moving to another country without his parents, to stay in a building he doesn't know, to go to a school with people he doesn't know, and you just passed over that like it was nothing because the goal, the ambition, the drive. I do hope that anyone that is, I think that can relate to so many different things, not just rugby, not just sport, in life in general. We get a lot of positive people on here. We get a lot of mind coaches and different things, and the key thing that I always hear in them is the moment comes where you've got to make a scary decision. And you're living the dream here now. You took that chance. And I always say to people turn around and say, but look, you don't get lucky, you create opportunity, you've worked hard, and I hope everything goes well for you at the end of the season. I want to see you out in France, and I'll be there cheering you on. And I just want to thank you for coming up. I think I've had a great thing, and we're going to leave it up to you, Del. Anything you want to say before we wrap her up?
Yeah, no, just thanks very much. It's been really enjoyable. It's actually no, it's nice because I don't get to do a lot of this stuff regularly. You know, you got busy schedules or whatever, but to be able to come out here and just talk and just have the crack is actually just nice, and it helps me because it just makes me talking about it reflect on my life as well, and obviously just hopefully people just get to know a little bit more about myself, and hopefully that's a good thing. And as you said about making those choices in life, you know, I think for every young or anybody at any stage in their life, if they come up to big decisions to make, you know, don't run away from them. Just walk towards it and just embrace it, because you know, hopefully good things will come from it. So, don't be scared to make good choices or make any choice, because hopefully good things will come from it. And fortunately for me, it did. So very grateful for that and very humbled to be here. So thank you.
Brilliant, Tom. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good man, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.